everyone buys real estate at some point in their lives. I happen to do it at a younger age than most people. The experience was one of the most terrifying, rewarding things I've ever done. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what that experience was like, what I learned from it. So I want to create kind of a platform that shares information about buying a property for the first time. So specifically kind of information for first-time home buyers. I also have a background in rentals. Was always surprised working in rentals at how many people made an investment, looking to have the property that they bought appreciate in value over a certain number of years. But what they were really doing was buying a property specifically to rent it out. And I found that a lot of people were actually pretty out of touch with what the market was doing at the time that they bought the rental property. And I think everyone kind of knows when you're looking to buy a rental property or you're looking to rent a property, things that people look for are very different. So if you're looking to rent a property, you don't care about a lot of the things that someone who's buying a property cares about. A good property for someone to buy, make improvements on, live in, have it appreciate over a period of years, that's sometimes going to be very different than what someone who is looking to rent a property is going to want. I got into real estate right after I finished university, and I ended up falling into a job working for a rental company. I always felt like I kind of had an interest in marketing, and I did a kind of general communications degree. I focused on writing actually and did a business minor, but really didn't have a clue or any sense of what kind of industry I wanted to go into. I ended up taking an admin job for this rental company, taking photos, writing descriptions, and just kind of very general stuff, and also a little bit of marketing, which I thought would be good experience. And then I originally only got my license just for a pay raise. It was only once I got that license and I started taking on a lot more responsibility, meeting with clients, going on the listing appointments, and actually doing the negotiation side of things that I realized I really loved it. A few disclaimers: I didn't just, watch Selling Sunset and have this idea that I was going to become a realtor. I also just want to acknowledge my grandparents passed away when I was pretty young. I basically received an inheritance at a pretty young age. One of the things that I thought about doing is, you could give that money to someone to put into the stock market, or you could do it yourself. Stocks intimidated me. Ultimately, I wanted to feel like I was in control of the investment that I was making, and I was very interested in real estate at the time. But I learned a lot of things just through that process and through working in the industry that, like I said, a lot of people making investments in real estate or buying a property for the first time wouldn't really know. I'm 21. And I picked a market that I actually was comfortable with. That market was the Victoria market. It was just an area that I was super familiar with, knew every neighborhood, knew all the streets, so I could go on MLS and look at properties and just know really clearly where they were located, pros and cons of the areas, and have a sense of what that property looked like. So I started working with a realtor. I had signed up for some kind of saved search and he reached out to me. I sort of started to refine what I was looking for. And one of the first things that comes up when you're going to buy a property is they tell you to go get pre-approved, or they ask if you are pre-approved. And I had no idea what that was. I didn't really understand it. But I went to my bank, sat down and with them, and I said, I want to get pre-approved. I want to buy a property in roughly X price range, and I have this much money to put down, and I want to rent it out. And that was pretty much all the information that I had. So I could do a whole other video on, and I probably will, just on getting pre-approved. It's basically your budget. I was not looking to max myself out in any way at all. I was very much just looking to enter the market. Bottom of the market was fine. I just wanted to buy a property that I knew that I could rent out consistently. There was a property that I was kind of interested in, and I was thinking about making an offer on, and my realtor at the time said, you should move on it because it's pretty well priced and it might not be available for that much longer. By the time I went through the pre-approval process, which was necessary to even make an offer on a property, someone else had made an offer and the property was tied up. So it was basically gone. It was not something that I could entertain anymore, which I felt that loss, I guess. And there were other properties that I was considering, and I was like, oh, that's fine. It was happening pretty quick anyway, so it gave me a little bit more time to just look at other options. Fast forward along maybe 2-3 weeks, and that offer fell apart, and my realtor called me, it's like 7 p.m. on a Monday or Tuesday night. This time I have my pre-approval, I know what I need to do, and I didn't want to lose it again, so I made an offer right away. So the offer got accepted quite quickly. This was when everything really kind of took off. Then I got introduced to the world of subjects. So again, I didn't really know what any of these things were until I was actually in the process and they were happening to me. So subjects are like conditions to buying the property. I was lucky, I just worked with a realtor that I really, really trusted, and he put a lot of just the standard subjects into my offer, and one of those subjects was subject to me viewing the property. So he was basically like, you need to get this subject removed first. We don't want to take time getting my financing in order and actually going to get my mortgage and all of that kind of stuff if I just ended up going to the property and not liking it. It's early in the week. I work 9 to 5 at my job at the rental company. So I called my aunt and uncle in Victoria, and I was like, so I have to see the property, I guess, but I don't really even want to see it. Will you go look at it for me? And I trust you. If you don't like it, or you see something that you really don't like, that's fine. And if you do like it, I'm fine to just go ahead based on what you think. And they, in hindsight, rightfully so, said, this is your investment. This is something that you want to do. You need to see it in person. So I booked a flight to Victoria the next day. I think I literally just went to work and then left maybe a little bit early and got on this flight. And then everything became very real. I just remember feeling so overwhelmed, this process was happening, it was set in motion. I was going to see this property. If I didn't like it, I was wasting $500 on a flight and missing work and all of this stress. So the result of all of these emotions was basically me crying with sunglasses on the airplane all the way to Victoria, just silently crying. Was so overwhelmed. The flight lands. I get off the plane, pretended like nothing happened. We went straight from the terminal to the property. It was winter, it was dark out by the time I got there. The tenants weren't home, but I remember just kind of being like, yeah, this is pretty much what I thought it was going to be based on the picture. Just kind of looked at the condition and talked about potential renovations that I could do. I go back to Vancouver, and I remember just kind of being so surprised over the next few weeks how many different appointments I had to make. I was, calling my contact at the bank almost daily about different things, everything that I needed to get in line for my financing. They were pretty hesitant to give me a mortgage at all, just because my credit history was so short. I really didn't know what an underwriter was, did not know what a guarantor was, didn't know any of this. Fortunately, I was working with my aunt and uncle who were in Victoria, and they had kind of been guiding me through the process a bit. So they said, you know, we'll be your guarantor. After that, lawyers get involved. So once you have your mortgage issued, you have to deal with a lawyer, and you know, they actually kind of take care of everything, but there is sort of a lot of paperwork to sign. I think I needed an extension to get my financing, so there's a whole amendment that happens to the contract. So I got an extra, I think it was 3 days. I had to go see a notary after work to sign off on all of this paperwork. In a real estate transaction, there's a lot of people that are involved. If you're going to buy a designer handbag or a new car, the biggest difference between doing something like that and buying a property is the amount of time that it takes. You can't buy or sell a property in a day. A property that was already tenanted, and that worked out very, very well for me, and it was one of the things that attracted me to the property, is just that I didn't have to then go through the next step of finding a tenant. I look back and sometimes wonder, you know, was that a good investment? Was it worth it? I could have definitely just put that money in the bank and not had to think about it. It cost more in terms of my time that I spent on the investment. I think that the experience was worth it. When you go to buy a property, for most people, it will be the biggest investment that they make. Probably going to be the biggest investment that you've made to date. There's people that will walk you through the process every step of the way, but the more information that you have going into it, the better equipped that you will be to make it a much smoother process. Even if the property itself is not anything to write home about, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't rent it really, really consistently. You could rent that property all day long. You know, market's great, market's not great, it's the dead of winter when no one wants to move. I'm still pretty young, which can be, depending how you look on it, an advantage and a disadvantage. Ultimately, I'm in this industry, and everyone else who's in the industry, we do real estate day in, day out, every day, all hours of the day. It doesn't stop. That's just a little bit of background on myself. And if you are interested in real estate, plan on buying real estate at any point in your life, like and subscribe.